Every 23 seconds, someone in the US has their first panic attack. In 2019, 301 million people worldwide lived with an anxiety disorder, and numbers have climbed since then. But here's the part that'll surprise you. Anxiety isn't actually a disorder of fear. Neuroscience shows anxiety arises when our brain's prediction machinery generates constant false alarms about the future. Your brain is constantly trying to guess what's coming next, and in anxious brains, those predictions have gone haywire. By the end of this video, you'll see how reframing anxiety as prediction errors leads to new treatment breakthroughs. Once you understand this single fact, everything about anxiety treatment changes. But first, let's hear from the people who know anxiety best. Real voices, when your mind won't stop racing. Sarah stares at her laptop screen at 2 a.m., her presentation due in 6 hours. She's rehearsed it 47 times already, but her mind keeps racing through everything that could go wrong. Her slides might not load. The projector could fail. Her professor might ask questions she can't answer. She knows the material perfectly, but sleep won't come because her brain won't stop generating disaster scenarios. Her heart pounds as if she's facing actual danger, her palms sweat, and her chest feels tight. The physical symptoms mirror those of someone in real peril, yet she's sitting safely in her bedroom. Marcus combines checking behaviors with catastrophic thinking in ways that consume his entire day. He checks his phone constantly when his daughter's at activities, imagining accidents and emergencies with each passing minute. At home, his morning routine stretches to 2 hours because he verifies door locks, stove knobs, and the garage door multiple times. He photographs each one so he can reference the images later when doubt creeps in. Even with photographic proof, he'll drive past his house twice during his commute to make sure it hasn't caught fire. His brain insists that without these rituals, disaster will strike. Jennifer sits in her car outside the coffee shop, engine running. She's been here for 15 minutes, practicing what she'll say to order her usual latte. Simple words that should flow naturally, but her throat feels tight just thinking about the barista looking at her. What if she stumbles over the words? What if there's a long line behind her and people get impatient? What if they're out of oat milk and she has to make another choice on the spot? She rehearses the interaction over and over, each version ending in humiliation. These voices might sound different, but they share something profound. Each person's brain has turned into a threat detection machine that won't shut off. Sarah's mind manufactures presentation disasters. Marcus creates scenarios of family tragedy and home destruction. Jennifer generates social humiliation scenes. Different triggers, same underlying pattern. The exhaustion is overwhelming. Living with anxiety means your nervous system runs in constant high gear, like driving with the emergency brake on. Your body produces stress hormones as if you're being chased by a predator, but the predator exists only in your predictions about the future. This chronic activation leaves people feeling drained, on edge, and often physically ill. Sarah develops insomnia because her brain won't distinguish between actual threats and imagined ones. Marcus starts avoiding social events because his anxiety about safety intensifies in crowds, while his checking rituals expand and consume more mental energy each day. Jennifer's world shrinks as she avoids more and more situations that trigger her social predictions. The isolation deepens the problem. When you're trapped in your own anxious predictions, it's hard to connect with others. Friends and family often don't understand why you can't just stop worrying about things that seem unlikely or manageable to them. They mean well when they say just relax or don't think about it. But they don't realize that anxious brains can't simply switch off their malfunctioning prediction systems. Sometimes these prediction spirals intensify into panic attacks, which the DSM-5 defines as abrupt surges of intense fear peaking within minutes. During these episodes, the body's alarm system reaches maximum activation, creating symptoms so intense that people often believe they're having heart attacks or losing their minds. These experiences represent a massive global reality. Anxiety disorders now affect more people than any other mental health condition. The numbers have grown significantly in recent years, partly due to better recognition and partly due to modern stressors that trigger our ancient threat detection systems in new ways. Social media creates new prediction triggers. Constant connectivity means our brains never get a break from potential threats and comparisons. Economic uncertainty, climate change, political instability, and global health concerns provide endless material for anxious predictions. Our Stone Age brains weren't designed to process the volume and complexity of modern potential threats. Yet understanding these shared patterns offers hope. What Sarah, Marcus, and Jennifer share is that their prediction systems have malfunctioned. Normal brains make predictions too. You see dark clouds and grab an umbrella. You notice brake lights ahead and slow down. These predictions keep you safe and prepared. But anxious brains generate predictions that are catastrophic, constant, and completely out of proportion to actual danger. Sarah's brain predicts professional disaster from a standard presentation. Marcus's brain predicts family tragedy from routine delays and home destruction from normal morning activities. Jennifer's brain predicts social rejection from ordering coffee. Each prediction feels absolutely real and urgent in the moment. The key insight that changes everything is recognizing anxiety, not as a character flaw or weakness, but as a prediction disorder. Your brain isn't broken, it's just generating false alarms about future threats. This understanding opens up entirely different approaches to treatment and recovery. The most encouraging part is that prediction systems can be recalibrated. Brains are remarkably adaptable, and the same neuroplasticity that allows anxiety patterns to develop also allows them to be changed. What Sarah, Marcus, and Jennifer need to understand is that their brains aren't predicting actual futures, they're creating anxiety-driven fiction. But how exactly does this prediction machinery work? And why does it malfunction in the first place? The prediction machine gone wrong. Your brain operates as a sophisticated prediction machine, constantly building models of the world to anticipate what happens next. Right now, as you're watching this, your brain makes thousands of tiny predictions. It predicts that the next word will make sense, that your chair will keep supporting you, that the lights will stay on. Most of the time, these predictions work perfectly, and you don't even notice them happening. For example, spotting brake lights triggers you to slow down, keeping you safe, a real-time survival mechanism explained in Who Materials. Think about how this works in your daily life. You see dark clouds gathering overhead, and your brain instantly predicts rain. Without even thinking about it, you grab an umbrella or change your plans. You're driving and notice brake lights ahead. Your brain predicts slowing traffic, and your foot moves toward the brake pedal before you consciously decide to slow down. You hear your phone buzz, and your brain predicts a text message, so you reach for it automatically. These predictions happen so fast and so automatically that they feel like instincts. But they're actually your brain running incredibly sophisticated algorithms based on everything you've experienced before. Your brain takes what it knows about clouds and rain, about brake lights and traffic, about phone sounds and messages, then creates a prediction about what's most likely to happen next. This system works so well that it keeps you safe, prepared, and moving through your day without having to consciously analyze every single situation. But what happens when this prediction system starts generating false alarms? What if your brain begins predicting disasters that aren't actually likely to happen? This is exactly what occurs in anxiety disorders. The same prediction system that normally keeps you safe starts creating catastrophic forecasts about everyday situations. Take that job interview you have next week. A normal prediction might be something like, I should prepare my answers and arrive on time. But an anxious brain might predict, I'm going to freeze up, forget everything I know, and they'll think I'm completely incompetent. The brain treats this prediction as if it's already happening, flooding your body with stress hormones and making you feel like you're in immediate danger. Or consider walking into a crowded restaurant. Your brain might normally predict, I'll find a table and order food. But if your prediction system is malfunctioning, it might generate something like, everyone will stare at me, I'll trip on the way to my table, and the server will think I'm weird. Your body responds to this prediction as if it's a real and present threat, even though you're just trying to get dinner. The fascinating part is that these predictions feel completely real in the moment. Your brain doesn't distinguish between actual threats and predicted threats. When it forecasts that you'll embarrass yourself in a meeting, your heart starts racing, your palms get sweaty, and your stomach churns, just as if the embarrassment were actually happening right now. The physical symptoms are identical whether the threat is real or just a prediction gone wrong. Recent neuroscience research has shown us exactly what's happening in anxious brains. During these prediction errors, functional MRI studies show hyperactivity in the amygdala when anxious predictions fire. Science confirms these systems are real. The prefrontal cortex, which usually helps regulate emotions and make rational decisions, can become overwhelmed by these false threat signals. The hippocampus, which helps form and retrieve memories, starts pulling up every negative experience you've ever had that might be relevant to the current situation. If you're nervous about a presentation, it might flood your mind with memories of that one time you stumbled over your words in 3rd grade, or when you forgot your lines in the school play, or when your boss looked annoyed during your last meeting. These memories get woven into the catastrophic prediction, making it feel even more real and urgent. What makes this particularly problematic is that anxious brains tend to give much more weight to negative predictions than positive ones. This is partly due to something called negativity bias. Your brain is wired to pay more attention to potential threats than to potential opportunities. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes sense. Missing a chance to find food might make you hungry, but missing a chance to avoid a predator could get you killed. But in modern life, this negativity bias can turn your prediction system into a disaster generator. Instead of balanced forecasts that consider both positive and negative possibilities, anxious brains create predictions that focus almost exclusively on what could go wrong. You might have given 50 successful presentations, but your brain predicts failure based on that one time things didn't go perfectly. The prediction errors in anxiety follow predictable patterns. Social anxiety involves predicting rejection, judgment, and humiliation in social situations. Generalized anxiety creates predictions of disaster across multiple areas of life. Panic disorder generates predictions of losing control or having a medical emergency. Each type of anxiety has its own signature prediction errors. Here's what changes everything about treatment. Once you understand that anxiety is fundamentally about faulty predictions rather than actual threats, you can start working with the prediction system itself. Instead of just trying to manage the symptoms of anxiety, you can actually retrain your brain to generate more accurate forecasts about the future. This understanding also explains why certain treatments work so well. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people identify and challenge their prediction errors. Exposure therapy allows people to test their predictions against reality and discover that their fears often don't come true. Mindfulness techniques help people observe their predictions without automatically believing them. The really encouraging part is that prediction systems can be retrained. Your brain is constantly updating its prediction algorithms based on new information. When you start noticing your prediction errors and challenging them with real-world evidence, your brain begins to generate more accurate forecasts. The same neuroplasticity that allowed anxiety patterns to develop can also help you develop healthier prediction patterns. But this raises a crucial question that many people struggle with. Normal brains make predictions too, and sometimes those predictions involve legitimate concerns. So when does prediction stop being helpful? Keep that question in mind as we dive into the warning signs that normal worry has become a disorder. The line between reasonable caution and something that needs professional attention isn't always clear, and many people find themselves wondering which side they're on. When worry becomes a prison, 3 key factors determine when worry crosses into disorder territory: intensity, duration, and impact on your daily life. Normal anxiety feels proportional to the situation that triggers it. You worry about a job interview because getting the job matters to you. You feel nervous before a medical test because the results could affect your health. These reactions make sense and usually fade once the situation resolves. Anxiety becomes a disorder when it's excessive compared to the actual threat level. If you're losing sleep for weeks before a routine dentist appointment, or if you can't concentrate at work because you're convinced your teenage daughter will get in a car accident every time she drives to school, the intensity doesn't match the realistic level of concern the situation warrants. Consider 2 different responses to starting a new job. Person A feels nervous the first week, worries about making a good impression, and has some trouble sleeping the night before important meetings. After a month, they've settled in and the anxiety fades. Person B spends 3 months having panic attacks every morning, calling in sick when the anxiety gets too overwhelming, and constantly checking their phone for emails from their boss, convinced they're about to be fired despite positive feedback. Studies find that over 19% of US adults experience an anxiety disorder yearly, making person B far from alone. The duration factor is crucial in making this distinction. The DSM-5 defines generalized anxiety disorder as worry occurring more days than not for at least 6 months. Temporary anxiety in response to specific stressors is normal and expected. But when anxiety becomes a constant companion that doesn't ease up even when things are going well, it's crossed into disorder territory. Lisa thought her anxiety was normal because she'd always been a worrier. She worried about her kids, her marriage, her finances, her health, and her aging parents. But when she started tracking her worry patterns, she realized she spent at least 4 hours every day caught in anxiety spirals about things that might go wrong. She couldn't watch a movie without her mind wandering to potential disasters. She couldn't enjoy dinner with friends because she was mentally rehearsing conversations she might need to have with her boss next week. Therapists recommend journaling to move worries from mind to paper, a technique supported by multiple studies. The third factor, impact on daily functioning, often provides the clearest answer about whether anxiety has become a disorder. Anxiety becomes problematic when it consistently interferes with your relationships, work performance, or ability to engage in activities you used to enjoy. If you're turning down social invitations because your anxiety about meeting new people is too intense, or if you're avoiding important tasks at work because the anxiety about potential failure feels unbearable, your anxiety has moved beyond normal worry. Mark's social anxiety illustrates this progression. He'd always been somewhat shy, preferring small gatherings to large parties. That was just his personality, and it didn't cause problems. But gradually, his discomfort in social situations intensified. He started declining invitations to co-workers' birthday parties. Then he began eating lunch alone to avoid casual conversations in the break room. Eventually, he was avoiding team meetings when possible and turning down projects that required collaboration. His career stagnated because his anxiety had created barriers to normal workplace interactions. The gray areas where many people find themselves can be particularly confusing. You might function reasonably well at work, but struggle intensely with social situations. Or you might excel in your professional life, while your anxiety makes personal relationships difficult to maintain. Some people develop sophisticated coping mechanisms that mask their anxiety from others while they suffer internally. Physical symptoms often signal that anxiety has become more serious. While everyone experiences occasional butterflies or racing thoughts, anxiety disorders typically involve persistent physical symptoms like muscle tension, fatigue, difficulty concentrating, irritability, and sleep disturbances. When these symptoms become chronic and interfere with your daily activities, they indicate that your anxiety has moved beyond normal stress responses. Sarah's experience shows how anxiety can gradually escalate without her realizing it had become a disorder. Her worry about her children's safety started reasonably. She wanted them to wear helmets while biking and call when they arrived at friends' houses. But over time, her safety concerns expanded. She began researching crime statistics for every neighborhood they visited. She started checking news reports obsessively for local accidents or incidents. She installed tracking apps on their phones and checked their locations dozens of times per day. When her teenager complained that the constant check-ins were embarrassing, and her husband pointed out that she seemed unable to relax even when the kids were safely at home, Sarah realized her anxiety had taken over. The worry that started as normal parental concern had grown into something that consumed hours of her day and strained her family relationships. Recognizing that your anxiety has crossed the line into a disorder can feel frightening, but it's actually the most important step toward getting better. Many people spend years thinking their anxiety is just part of their personality, or that they should be able to handle it on their own. Understanding that anxiety disorders are medical conditions with effective treatments can be incredibly relieving. The American Psychiatric Association found that 43% of adults reported feeling more anxious in 2024 than the previous year, showing that anxiety is increasingly common. But increased awareness also means more people are recognizing when their anxiety needs professional attention and seeking help earlier. The boundary between normal anxiety and an anxiety disorder isn't always crystal clear, but the impact on your life provides the most reliable guide. When anxiety consistently prevents you from living the way you want to live, when it creates barriers to relationships or opportunities, when it consumes significant mental energy that could be directed toward more fulfilling activities, it's time to consider that you might be dealing with something more serious than everyday worry. Understanding these warning signs becomes even more important when you realize that anxiety disorders take many different forms. Some people experience anxiety that spreads across every area of their lives, turning their minds into constant worry machines that never shut off. Generalized anxiety, the everything disorder. Generalized anxiety disorder affects 3.1% of US adults, according to ADA data, making it extremely common. This is exactly what the name suggests. Your anxiety doesn't focus on one specific thing like spiders or public speaking. Instead, it spreads across every area of your life like spilled water, soaking into everything it touches. Jessica's morning routine shows what GAD looks like in real life. She wakes up thinking about her presentation at work, then immediately starts worrying about whether her teenage son will remember to take his lunch money. While brushing her teeth, she remembers she needs to call her mother, which triggers concern about her mom's recent doctor visit. By the time she's dressed, she's already worried about traffic, her boss's mood, the weird noise her car made yesterday, and whether she paid the electric bill. Her day hasn't even started, but her mind has already visited a dozen potential disasters. The prediction system in GAD works over time, across multiple domains simultaneously. Where someone with a specific phobia might have a malfunctioning prediction system that only activates around heights or dogs, people with GAD have prediction systems that find potential threats everywhere. Their brains constantly scan for problems in their relationships, health, finances, work performance, family safety, and even minor daily tasks. This creates an exhausting state of hypervigilance. Tom describes it as feeling like a security guard who never gets to go off duty. His brain monitors his wife's tone of voice for signs of relationship problems, analyzes his boss's emails for hints of job dissatisfaction, and tracks his children's moods for evidence of bullying or depression. He can't sit down to watch television without his mind wandering to unpaid bills, upcoming deadlines, or that strange look his neighbor gave him last week. According to ADA 2022 data, 6.8 million US adults live with GAD, with women being twice as likely to develop the condition as men. What makes these statistics particularly concerning is that GAD typically develops gradually, often going unrecognized for years. People frequently assume their constant worry is just part of their personality rather than a treatable medical condition. The physical symptoms of GAD often surprise people because they don't realize anxiety can affect the body so extensively. Chronic muscle tension is extremely common, particularly in the neck, shoulders, and jaw. People clench their teeth without realizing it, leading to headaches and dental problems. The constant state of alertness exhausts the nervous system, causing fatigue that sleep doesn't seem to cure. Research shows 60% of people with GAD report severe sleep disturbances, exemplified by constant rumination like Maria's. Her brain wouldn't shut off at bedtime. She'd lie awake reviewing conversations from the day, planning tomorrow's tasks, and worrying about problems that might arise weeks in the future. Even when physically exhausted, her mind kept generating new concerns that demanded attention. She started keeping a notebook by her bed to write down worries, but found herself filling multiple pages each night. Concentration becomes nearly impossible when your attention constantly shifts between different worry topics. Students with GAD struggle to focus on lectures because their minds jump from upcoming assignments to family problems to financial concerns. Workers find themselves rereading emails multiple times because they can't absorb the information while simultaneously worrying about other tasks. The inability to concentrate fully on any single activity creates a sense of being constantly behind and overwhelmed. Decision-making becomes particularly challenging with GAD because every choice generates multiple worry scenarios. Choosing a restaurant for dinner triggers concerns about food safety, cost, whether everyone will like the food, parking availability, and timing. Planning a vacation involves excessive research into weather patterns, crime statistics, hotel reviews, and transportation options. Simple decisions that others make quickly become lengthy internal debates about potential negative outcomes. The relationship impact of GAD often catches people off guard. Rachel's husband grew frustrated with her constant need for reassurance about their relationship. She would ask multiple times per day if he was happy, if she had said something wrong, or if he was mad about something. Her anxiety made her hyper-aware of any changes in his behavior, leading her to overanalyze casual comments or brief silences. What started as caring concern gradually became exhausting for both of them. The constant worry pattern in GAD follows predictable cycles. A worry thought appears, triggering physical anxiety symptoms, which then generate more worry thoughts about the anxiety itself. People start worrying about their worry, creating layers of meta-anxiety that multiply the original concern. This cycle can continue for hours or even days, with the original trigger becoming lost in the expanding web of related fears. The good news is that GAD responds exceptionally well to treatment. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people identify their worry patterns and develop skills to interrupt the anxiety cycles. Modern approaches focus on helping people recognize when their prediction systems are generating false alarms and teaching them to respond differently to worry thoughts. Digital tools are revolutionizing GAD treatment in 2025. Wearable stress trackers can detect elevated heart rate and stress markers, then prompt users to practice breathing exercises or mindfulness techniques. As one expert notes, imagine receiving a prompt from your mental health app to do a breathing exercise after detecting elevated heart rate and stress markers. These innovations empower you to take control daily. The key difference between GAD and other anxiety disorders is this shotgun approach to worry. While GAD spreads its predictions across every aspect of life, other anxiety disorders focus their prediction errors on specific situations. Some people find their anxiety concentrates entirely on social anxiety, when people become the threat. Social anxiety transforms other people into perceived threats, creating a modern paradox where we're more connected than ever, yet millions feel completely isolated. We have instant access to friends, family, and strangers through dozens of apps and platforms, yet rates of social anxiety have risen in younger adults per APA polls. The very tools designed to bring us together have created new ways for anxious brains to predict social disaster. Emma's day illustrates this perfectly. She wakes up to 17 notifications on her phone. 3 friends tagged her in photos from last weekend's dinner, but instead of feeling included, her brain immediately starts analyzing the images. Does she look awkward in that one picture? Why is she standing slightly apart from the group? She studies everyone's facial expressions, searching for signs that they were just being polite when they invited her. Before she's even gotten out of bed, her prediction system has generated a narrative about being the unwanted friend that nobody really likes. Her commute involves checking Instagram stories, where she sees co-workers at a happy hour she wasn't invited to. Her brain doesn't consider logical explanations, like it being a small team meeting or a last-minute plan. Instead, it predicts that she's being deliberately excluded because people find her boring or annoying. By the time she arrives at work, she's already convinced herself that everyone dislikes her, even though she has no actual evidence for this belief. The distinction between shyness and social anxiety disorder matters enormously. Shy people might prefer smaller gatherings or need time to warm up in new social situations, but they can still function normally when needed. Social anxiety disorder creates predictions so catastrophic that they prevent normal social functioning entirely. Consider 2 people giving a presentation to their team. A shy person might feel nervous beforehand and prefer not to do it, but they can get through the presentation and feel relieved afterward. Someone with social anxiety disorder might spend weeks beforehand predicting humiliation. Their brain generates detailed scenarios of forgetting their words, having everyone judge their ideas as stupid, or being visibly nervous in ways that embarrass them professionally. The anxiety might be so intense that they call in sick rather than face the situation. Marcus shows how social anxiety can completely isolate someone from meaningful connections. He's intelligent, funny, and genuinely cares about others, but his brain predicts rejection in almost every social interaction. When co-workers invite him to lunch, he declines because he's convinced the conversation will be awkward and they'll regret asking him. When neighbors say hello, he keeps interactions brief because he assumes they're just being polite and don't actually want to talk. His world has gradually shrunk to work, home, and essential errands, because every social opportunity triggers predictions of judgment and rejection. CDC data shows 26.6% of 18 to 29-year-olds reported anxiety symptoms, highlighting how social media stress compounds social anxiety. These digital natives face social evaluation not just in person, but across multiple online platforms where interactions can be screenshot, shared, and analyzed by others. Our World in Data reports social anxiety searches have climbed 2,000% over 4 years. The pressure to maintain an online persona while managing real-world relationships creates constant opportunities for social prediction errors. The prediction mistakes in social anxiety follow specific patterns. Anxious brains consistently overestimate how much attention others pay to their behavior. They assume people notice and judge every small social mistake, when research shows that most people are primarily focused on themselves. This spotlight effect affects socially anxious individuals intensely. Their brains also predict catastrophic outcomes from minor social missteps. Stumbling over words during a conversation becomes evidence that everyone thinks they're incompetent. Wearing the wrong outfit to an event means they'll be judged as having poor taste or not belonging in that social group. Sending a text that doesn't get an immediate response triggers predictions that the person is annoyed or losing interest in the friendship. The physical symptoms make everything worse. When Ashley walks into a crowded restaurant, her heart starts racing before she even approaches the hostess. Her face flushes, her hands shake slightly, and her voice sounds strained when she speaks. These physical reactions then become additional sources of anxiety. She worries that people will notice her blushing and think she's weird or unstable. The symptoms that stem from her social anxiety create more social anxiety, trapping her in escalating cycles of distress. Avoidance behaviors strengthen social anxiety over time through a cruel irony. Every social situation that Marcus avoids confirms his brain's prediction that social interactions are dangerous. When he skips the office party, he doesn't get evidence that people actually enjoy his company. When Ashley leaves the restaurant early, she doesn't discover that other people weren't judging her appearance. The avoidance protects them from immediate anxiety, but prevents them from collecting data that could correct their prediction errors. Digital communication creates new complications for social anxiety. Text messages and emails remove nonverbal cues that help people interpret social interactions. When someone with social anxiety sends a text and doesn't get a quick response, their brain fills in the blanks with negative predictions. Social media platforms provide endless opportunities for social comparison and prediction errors. The encouraging news is that social anxiety responds extremely well to modern treatment approaches. Cognitive behavioral therapy helps people identify their prediction errors and test them against reality. Therapists now use virtual reality to create safe environments where people can practice social skills and challenge their catastrophic predictions. The key breakthrough in treating social anxiety comes from understanding it as a prediction disorder rather than a character flaw. When people realize their brains are generating false alarms about social threats, they can start questioning those predictions and collecting evidence about what actually happens in social situations. But while social anxiety spreads its predictions across all social interactions, some anxiety disorders work differently. Sometimes the prediction system doesn't cast a wide net of worry. Instead, it focuses all its power on very specific triggers, turning ordinary objects or situations into sources of overwhelming terror. Phobias, when fear gets laser-focused. A spider the size of a quarter can send a grown adult fleeing from their own home, while a perfectly safe elevator triggers such intense panic that someone climbs 20 flights of stairs instead. This is the world of phobias, where your brain's prediction system becomes so laser-focused on specific triggers that ordinary objects or situations transform into perceived life-threatening dangers. Unlike generalized anxiety that spreads across multiple life areas, phobias concentrate all their power on particular targets. The brain doesn't generate vague worries about everything that might go wrong. Instead, it creates intensely specific predictions about what will happen when confronted with dogs, needles, bridges, or any of hundreds of other potential phobic triggers. These predictions are so vivid and compelling that they override rational thinking completely. Take Jennifer's elevator phobia. She knows elevators are statistically safer than stairs and understands the engineering principles that make modern elevators extremely reliable. But when she approaches elevator doors, her brain generates catastrophic predictions with movie-like clarity. She sees the cables snapping, the elevator plummeting, herself trapped between floors with no way out. These predictions feel so real that her body responds as if the disaster is already happening. Her heart pounds, her palms sweat, and every instinct screams at her to escape the imagined danger. The difference between common fears and clinical phobias lies in intensity, irrationality, and life impact. Most people feel some nervousness around snakes or heights. That's normal caution that probably kept our ancestors alive. But phobias involve fear responses that are completely disproportionate to actual danger levels. Someone with a snake phobia might refuse to walk in parks where snakes could theoretically exist, even in urban areas where encounters are virtually impossible. Specific phobias affect up to 12% of adults in the US. These numbers represent millions of people whose daily lives are shaped by their brain's prediction errors about specific triggers. The most common phobias include animals like spiders, snakes, and dogs, natural environments like heights and storms, medical situations involving blood or injections, and situational fears like flying or enclosed spaces. Research shows flying is about 30 times safer than driving, yet aerophobia affects millions. Michael's dog phobia shows how these prediction errors develop and strengthen over time. As a child, a neighbor's dog knocked him down while playing in the yard. The incident wasn't particularly traumatic at the time, but his brain filed it away as evidence that dogs are dangerous. Over the years, his prediction system built elaborate scenarios around this single data point. Now, seeing any dog triggers predictions of being attacked, bitten, or knocked down again. His brain doesn't distinguish between a tiny poodle and a large German shepherd. All dogs activate the same catastrophic prediction system. Phobias often develop through direct negative experiences, but they can also form through observation or information. Someone might develop a flying phobia after watching news coverage of plane crashes, even though they've never had a bad flying experience themselves. Others develop phobias by watching family members react fearfully to specific triggers. Children whose parents panic around spiders often develop spider phobias through this learned response pattern. The avoidance cycle makes phobias particularly stubborn and seemingly insurmountable. Every time someone successfully avoids their phobic trigger, their brain interprets this as proof that the trigger is genuinely dangerous. When Michael crosses the street to avoid a dog, his brain records this as emergency avoidance prevented disaster. The relief he feels after avoiding the dog reinforces the prediction that dogs are threats worth avoiding. This avoidance pattern can completely reshape someone's life around their phobia. Linda's bridge phobia means she drives an extra 45 minutes to work each day to avoid crossing the main bridge in her city. She's turned down job opportunities that would require bridge crossings. She's missed family gatherings and social events because getting there would mean facing her phobic trigger. Her world has gradually shrunk to accommodate her brain's false predictions about bridge safety. The geographic limitations imposed by phobias can be particularly restrictive. Someone with a flying phobia might never travel beyond driving distance from home, missing career opportunities and family connections. An elevator phobia can effectively bar someone from working in tall buildings or living in certain apartments. A driving phobia can create dependence on others for transportation, limiting independence and spontaneity. Modern treatment approaches have revolutionized phobia recovery with remarkable success rates. Virtual reality exposure therapy represents one of the most exciting developments in 2025. This innovative approach allows individuals to confront their fears in a controlled and safe virtual environment. For example, individuals with a fear of flying can undergo virtual flights while safely on the ground. The technology creates realistic experiences that feel authentic enough to trigger the phobic response while maintaining complete safety. Traditional exposure therapy works by gradually introducing people to their phobic triggers in manageable doses. Someone with a spider phobia might start by looking at cartoon spiders, then photographs, then videos, before eventually being in the same room as a real spider. Each exposure provides evidence that contradicts their brain's catastrophic predictions. When the predicted disaster doesn't occur, the prediction system gradually recalibrates to generate more accurate forecasts. Meta-analyses find up to 90% success in treating specific phobias with exposure-based therapies, including VRET. Most people see significant improvement within weeks or months of starting treatment. Unlike some mental health conditions that require long-term management, many phobias can be completely resolved with proper treatment. Virtual reality makes it possible to simulate situations for those with anxiety symptoms too complex or not feasible to replicate in real life. Someone with a storm phobia can experience realistic thunderstorms in a therapist's office. Those with height phobias can practice being on tall buildings without actual physical danger. The controlled environment allows for repeated exposures that would be difficult or expensive to arrange in real life. The key insight that makes phobia treatment so effective is understanding them as prediction disorders rather than character weaknesses. When people realize their brains are generating false alarms about specific triggers, they can work systematically to provide corrective information to their prediction systems. The same neuroplasticity that allowed the phobia to develop allows it to be unlearned through proper treatment approaches. But while phobias represent anxiety, focused on specific triggers, some anxiety disorders involve prediction systems that become completely overwhelmed by past experiences, creating symptoms that extend far beyond simple fear responses. PTSD, when the past hijacks the present. PTSD, classified alongside anxiety, but now in its own category, shows how past threats hijack present safety signals. While other anxiety disorders involve prediction errors about future threats, PTSD traps people in a different kind of hell where past trauma continuously invades the present moment. Your brain's prediction system doesn't just malfunction, it gets permanently stuck in survival mode, treating every day like the dangerous event is still happening. When someone experiences trauma, their brain records every detail with unusual intensity. The sights, sounds, smells, physical sensations, and emotions get encoded, together as a complete sensory package. In normal memory processing, these details would gradually fade and integrate with other experiences. But trauma memories stay raw and vivid, like wounds that never heal properly. The brain treats these memories as current threats rather than past events. Recent neuroscience research has revealed exactly how trauma rewires the brain's threat detection systems. The amygdala, which processes threats, becomes hyperactive and oversensitive after trauma. It starts identifying danger signals everywhere, even in safe situations. Meanwhile, the hippocampus, which helps distinguish between past and present, shrinks and functions less effectively. This creates a perfect storm where the brain can't properly contextualize traumatic memories as belonging to the past. The prefrontal cortex, responsible for rational thinking and emotional regulation, also shows changes after trauma. This area becomes less active, making it harder to think logically when triggered. The result is that trauma survivors often know intellectually that they're safe now, but their brains continue responding as if the danger is immediate and real. Veterans returning from combat zones illustrate how these brain changes affect daily life. Jake served 2 tours in Afghanistan and witnessed several roadside bomb explosions. Now, back home in suburban Minnesota, his brain still scans for threats constantly. The sound of a car backfiring sends him diving for cover. Crowded restaurants trigger intense anxiety because his brain predicts ambush scenarios. He checks and rechecks door locks, not because he's worried about burglars, but because his trauma-altered brain treats his peaceful neighborhood like a war zone. PTSD symptoms extend far beyond the flashbacks that most people associate with the condition. Sleep becomes elusive because the brain maintains hypervigilance even during rest. Nightmares replay traumatic events or create new scenarios where similar dangers appear. Many trauma survivors develop insomnia, afraid to sleep because dreams feel too real and terrifying. Relationships suffer tremendously under PTSD's impact. Emotional numbing, one of the core symptoms, makes it difficult to connect with loved ones. Maria survived a car accident that killed her best friend. Afterward, she couldn't feel joy, love, or even sadness properly. Her husband felt like he was living with a stranger because her emotional responses had flattened. She wanted to care about their anniversary dinner or their daughter's school play, but the capacity for positive emotions seemed broken. Irritability and anger outbursts strained family relationships further. The hyperarousal symptoms of PTSD mean that trauma survivors often react with intense anger to minor frustrations. Children walking too loudly, unexpected phone calls, or changes in routine can trigger explosive responses that seem completely disproportionate to the situation. Anxiety and Depression Association data shows 7.7 million US adults live with PTSD. Veterans, first responders, and individuals who have experienced interpersonal violence show higher rates of PTSD, with the specific type of trauma significantly influencing the likelihood of developing the disorder. Motor vehicle accidents, sexual assault, childhood abuse, natural disasters, and combat exposure all create different patterns of PTSD symptoms. Events involving violence or direct threat to life often lead to more severe and persistent symptoms. The brain's memory systems malfunction in PTSD in ways that make past events feel present and dangerous. Normal memories fade over time and lose their emotional intensity. You can remember your high school graduation without feeling the same excitement or nervousness you felt that day. But traumatic memories maintain their full emotional charge, complete with physical sensations and stress responses. These intrusive memories don't feel like remembering, they feel like re-experiencing. When Lisa has flashbacks to her sexual assault, she doesn't think about what happened 5 years ago. Her brain responds as if the attack is happening right now. Her heart races, her breathing becomes shallow, and she experiences the same terror she felt during the original event. The memory isn't just a thought, it's a full-body experience that hijacks her present moment. Modern treatment approaches have revolutionized PTSD recovery. Eye movement desensitization and reprocessing therapy, known as EMDR, helps people process traumatic memories in ways that reduce their emotional intensity. Clinical trials show EMDR can lead to significant symptom reduction for many PTSD patients. During EMDR sessions, people recall traumatic events while engaging in bilateral stimulation, usually through guided eye movements. This process helps the brain reprocess the memories and file them away as past events rather than current threats. Trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy teaches people to identify and change thought patterns that maintain PTSD symptoms. Prolonged exposure therapy gradually helps people face trauma-related memories, feelings, and situations they've been avoiding. This isn't about forcing people to relive their trauma, but rather helping them reclaim activities and experiences that PTSD has stolen from their lives. The most encouraging aspect of PTSD treatment is that recovery is not only possible, but expected with proper intervention. The same neuroplasticity that allowed trauma to change the brain also allows healing and restoration of normal functioning. But while PTSD shows how anxiety can be triggered by past experiences, other anxiety disorders create their own unique patterns of distress, often involving behaviors that seem completely puzzling to outside observers. OCD, when anxiety demands rituals. Obsessive-compulsive disorder traps people in cycles where anxiety demands specific rituals, and failing to comply makes the distress unbearable. Studies link OCD compulsions directly to fear-based prediction errors. Rituals temporarily silence the brain's false alarm signals. This isn't about being neat or organized. It's about being held hostage by a malfunctioning prediction system that generates catastrophic forecasts about harm and responsibility. Obsessive-compulsive disorder affects 1.2% of US adults per ADA data. The cycle works with devastating precision. First comes the obsession, an intrusive thought that invades your mind uninvited. These thoughts usually focus on contamination, harm, or personal responsibility for preventing disasters. Then anxiety builds rapidly as your brain treats this thought as an immediate threat. Finally comes the compulsion, the behavior you feel forced to perform to make the anxiety disappear. The relief is temporary, but powerful enough to strengthen the cycle each time. Rachel's morning routine illustrates this prison perfectly. She wakes up with immediate thoughts about germs on her hands. The thought feels urgent and real, like her hands carry dangerous bacteria that could sicken her family. Anxiety builds until she can't focus on anything else. She washes her hands for exactly 2 minutes, counting to ensure adequate scrubbing. Relief comes immediately, but briefly. Within minutes, doubt returns. Maybe she didn't wash thoroughly enough. Maybe she touched something contaminated afterward. The cycle restarts. By the time Rachel leaves for work, she's washed her hands 12 times. She's checked the coffee maker 6 times despite its automatic shut-off feature. She's verified the front door lock by turning the handle 4 times and photographing it. These behaviors make no logical sense to her, but the anxiety from skipping them feels overwhelming. The time consumption is staggering. Many people with OCD spend hours daily performing compulsive behaviors. Some report that rituals consume up to 6 hours, leaving minimal time for work, relationships, or enjoyable activities. The prediction errors in OCD are particularly cruel because they focus on responsibility and harm prevention. Mark's brain generates predictions that he's responsible for preventing disasters through checking behaviors. If he doesn't verify the stove is off exactly 3 times, his brain predicts house fires and personal blame. If he doesn't arrange books in specific order, something bad will happen to his family. These predictions feel completely real and urgent, despite his logical understanding that checking behaviors don't actually prevent disasters. These catastrophic thoughts about responsibility create inflated threat perception and personal accountability. People with OCD often feel they possess magical powers to prevent harm through rituals, even while understanding intellectually that their behaviors don't influence outcomes. This phenomenon, called thought-action fusion, makes having a thought feel equivalent to performing an action or causing a result. The diagnostic timeline for OCD often involves significant delays, making treatment more challenging. Many people hide symptoms for years due to embarrassment or fear of being considered mentally unstable. They develop elaborate strategies to perform rituals privately or create excuses for their behaviors. This delay allows OCD to become deeply entrenched before treatment begins. Contamination fears in OCD can blend with health anxiety, creating predictions about illness that fuel both conditions. Social anxiety might develop as people worry about others noticing their checking behaviors or questioning their avoidance patterns. The prediction errors in each condition reinforce others, creating anxiety webs that affect multiple life areas. Exposure and response prevention therapy specifically targets the OCD cycle with remarkable success in breaking these patterns. ERP helps people gradually face obsessions without performing compulsions. This teaches the brain that anxiety decreases naturally without rituals, weakening connections between obsessions and compulsions. The process starts small and builds gradually. Someone with contamination fears might begin by touching a doorknob and waiting 5 minutes before washing hands, instead of rushing to wash immediately. Over time, they work toward longer delays and more challenging exposures. The key involves learning to tolerate anxiety without performing compulsions, which eventually reduces both obsession intensity and ritual urges. Success stories from 2025 research provide genuine hope. Studies show ERP therapy helps 60 to 80% of people with OCD experience significant symptom reduction. Many reduce ritual time from hours daily to just minutes. Some achieve complete remission, while others manage symptoms effectively enough to reclaim their lives. Treatment works because it addresses fundamental prediction errors driving OCD. When people discover their feared outcomes don't actually occur when resisting compulsions, their brain's prediction system gradually recalibrates. Catastrophic predictions about harm and responsibility lose power when confronted with real-world evidence. Digital tools are revolutionizing OCD treatment. Apps help people track symptoms, practice exposures, and resist compulsions when therapists aren't available. Some programs use virtual reality to create controlled environments for exposure exercises that wouldn't be practical in real life. The most encouraging aspect of OCD treatment is that the same brain mechanisms creating the disorder can be retrained to function normally. The prediction system generating false alarms about contamination or harm can learn to generate more accurate forecasts about actual risks. This neuroplasticity means recovery isn't just possible, it's probable with proper treatment. Understanding OCD as a prediction disorder rather than a character flaw opens entirely different treatment approaches. The same faulty prediction machinery that creates obsessions and compulsions exists in other anxiety conditions too. The anxiety web, how disorders connect. Most anxiety disorders don't appear in isolation. If you develop one type of prediction error, your brain becomes vulnerable to developing others. Studies estimate 45.7% of those with lifetime major depression have an anxiety disorder. When examining just the past year, 41.6% of people with depression also experienced anxiety during that same period. These numbers reveal that nearly half of all people managing depression simultaneously fight anxiety. The overlap becomes even more pronounced with specific conditions. People with social anxiety disorder face a 20% to 70% lifetime risk of developing depression. Research shows about half of people with panic disorder develop major depression. These conditions cluster together because they share the same fundamental problem with prediction systems. Once your brain's threat detection machinery starts generating false alarms in one area, it becomes more likely to malfunction elsewhere. Sarah's progression illustrates this pattern perfectly. Social anxiety in high school expanded into generalized anxiety by college, with panic attacks appearing during her senior year. Each new disorder built upon the existing prediction system errors. The timeline follows predictable patterns. Anxiety disorders typically emerge during childhood or adolescence, while depression develops later during teenage years or early adulthood. European community studies found that social anxiety preceded major depression by at least 2 years in 65% of cases. This sequence suggests untreated anxiety creates pathways for depression to develop. Understanding how these conditions reinforce each other reveals why they're so difficult to separate. Anxiety exhausts you mentally and physically. Constant vigilance for future threats leaves little energy for enjoying present moments. This chronic state of alertness gradually wears you down, creating the hopelessness and despair characteristic of depression. Depression then amplifies anxiety in return. When depressed, you have less energy to challenge anxious predictions or engage in activities that might provide contradictory evidence. Avoidance behaviors increase, preventing you from learning that catastrophic predictions rarely materialize. The avoidance strengthens anxiety, which deepens depression, creating cycles that become increasingly difficult to interrupt. Physical symptoms overlap significantly between conditions. Both anxiety and depression cause sleep disturbances, fatigue, concentration difficulties, and appetite changes. People often describe feeling anxiously depressed or depressively anxious, with moods stuck in states of worried sadness, where distinguishing between conditions becomes nearly impossible. Treatment complexity increases dramatically when multiple disorders coexist. People managing both anxiety and depression show lower remission rates with standard treatments compared to those with single conditions. They experience more severe symptoms and greater functional impairment. The **D study revealed that 53% of people with depression had significant anxiety symptoms, and these individuals were less likely to achieve depression remission. Substance use frequently emerges as people seek relief from overwhelming symptoms. Alcohol and drugs temporarily quiet anxious thoughts or numb depressive feelings, but worsen both conditions long-term. What begins as occasional self-medication can develop into addiction, adding substance use disorders to existing mental health challenges. Who reports untreated anxiety increases cardiovascular risk and other chronic conditions. The constant stress response weakens immune systems and can cause gastrointestinal disorders while exacerbating existing medical problems. This physical toll accumulates over years of chronic activation. Relationships deteriorate when multiple anxiety disorders cluster together. Remaining present with family and friends becomes nearly impossible when constantly worried about various life areas. The irritability accompanying chronic anxiety and depression strains even strong relationships. Social withdrawal increases as people avoid situations triggering their multiple anxieties. Work and school performance decline significantly. Concentration becomes impossible when fighting both anxious predictions and depressive thoughts. The symptoms interfere with family, social, and professional functioning, leading to social isolation, reduced productivity, and diminished quality of life. These interconnections also create opportunities. When you recognize that multiple conditions stem from the same malfunctioning prediction system, you can target underlying mechanisms rather than treating each disorder separately. Therapy approaches addressing prediction errors help with multiple anxiety disorders simultaneously. Cognitive behavioral therapy works particularly well for this interconnected approach because it teaches identification and challenging of prediction errors, driving all anxiety symptoms. Skills learned for questioning catastrophic predictions in one area transfer to other areas where prediction systems generate false alarms. Neuroplasticity means the same brain mechanisms allowing multiple anxiety disorders to develop can support recovery from all of them. Retraining prediction systems to generate accurate forecasts spreads benefits across all areas where anxiety has established itself. Early intervention becomes crucial when understanding how anxiety disorders connect and build upon each other. Treating social anxiety during adolescence might prevent later depression development. Addressing generalized anxiety early could stop expansion into panic disorder or specific phobias. The web connecting anxiety disorders might seem daunting, but recognizing these patterns reveals the common thread linking all these conditions. When you understand the shared foundation, you can address root causes rather than managing individual symptoms. This understanding has transformed how mental health professionals approach anxiety treatment, leading to more effective interventions than ever before. The treatment revolution. What actually works in 2025? Modern treatment options offer unprecedented hope for anxiety recovery. Anxiety treatment has never been more effective than it is right now in 2025. We've reached a point where recovery isn't just possible, it's expected when people get the right help. The success rates we're seeing across all anxiety disorders are higher than they've ever been, and new breakthrough treatments are helping people who didn't respond to older approaches. CBT consistently ranks as a first-line treatment with the strongest evidence base for anxiety disorders. For specific phobias, the success rates climb even higher, with some studies showing 85 to 90% of people experiencing major symptom reduction. Social anxiety disorder responds well to treatment in about 75% of cases. Even complex conditions like PTSD and OCD, which used to be considered much harder to treat, now show recovery rates between 60 and 70% with modern approaches. Understanding anxiety as a prediction disorder has completely changed how we approach treatment. Instead of just teaching people to manage their symptoms or avoid their triggers, we can now target the underlying mechanism that creates anxiety in the first place. When therapists help people recognize that their brains are generating false predictions about future threats, treatment becomes much more focused and effective. Cognitive behavioral therapy remains the gold standard for anxiety treatment, but it's evolved significantly in recent years. The old approach involved lengthy sessions where people talked through their problems. Modern CBT is much more structured and action-oriented. Therapists now integrate AI-guided tools to help patients identify and reframe irrational thinking patterns in real time. These digital assists help people catch their prediction errors as they happen, rather than trying to remember them later in therapy sessions. CBT plans now include structured exercises to differentiate between realistic concerns and exaggerated fears. A person with social anxiety might learn to distinguish between the reasonable concern that they might stumble over a word during a presentation versus the catastrophic prediction that everyone will think they're incompetent and they'll lose their job. These exercises teach long-term coping skills that people can use independently. Acceptance and commitment therapy represents one of the most exciting breakthrough treatments of recent years. Instead of trying to eliminate anxious thoughts completely, ACT teaches people to change their relationship with those thoughts. The approach helps people recognize anxious predictions as mental events rather than facts about reality. Someone having the thought, "I'm going to embarrass myself at this meeting," learns to respond with, "I'm having the thought that I'm going to embarrass myself," rather than treating the prediction as truth. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is gaining recognition as a standalone treatment, blending meditative techniques with cognitive strategies to increase present moment awareness. This combination has been shown to significantly reduce GAD symptoms by training the brain to respond differently to stress triggers. People learn to observe their anxious predictions without getting caught up in them, which breaks the cycle of worry that feeds generalized anxiety. Another trend is neurofeedback, a form of biofeedback that helps patients gain control over their brain's electrical activity. Clinics use real-time EEG monitoring to train patients in reducing overactivity in anxiety-related brain regions, offering a drug-free approach. People can actually watch their brain activity on a screen and learn to change it through focused attention and breathing techniques. Medication advances have been remarkable. Newer SSRIs and SNRIs offer targeted relief with milder side effects, supported by meta-analyses. The newer medications target specific neurotransmitter systems involved in anxiety prediction errors, often with much milder side effects than older drugs. People can get relief from their symptoms without the drowsiness, weight gain, or other problems that made older medications difficult to tolerate. Advanced diagnostic tools, such as genetic profiling and neural imaging, enable doctors to tailor medication choices, leading to improved outcomes. Instead of trying different medications through trial and error, doctors can now predict which medications are most likely to work for each individual person. This personalized approach means people get effective treatment faster and with fewer side effects. Studies show combined therapy and medication often yield better outcomes than either alone. While therapy alone works well for many people, combining it with medication when needed produces even better results. The synergy between psychological and pharmaceutical interventions addresses both the cognitive patterns and neurochemical imbalances that maintain anxiety disorders. Digital therapeutics are revolutionizing access to anxiety treatment. In 2025, digital tools like wearable stress trackers and mobile therapy apps offer personalized suggestions based on real-time data. These innovations empower individuals to take control daily. Your smartwatch can detect elevated heart rate and stress markers, then prompt you to practice breathing exercises or mindfulness techniques before your anxiety spirals out of control. Platforms that mental health professionals endorse offer features like progress tracking, guided journaling, and virtual therapy check-ins. People in rural areas or those with busy schedules can access quality treatment that wasn't available to them before. AI-assisted therapy programs can provide 24-hour support, helping people practice their coping skills when therapists aren't available. Virtual reality exposure therapy has transformed treatment for specific phobias and PTSD. People with flying phobias can experience realistic flights while safely on the ground. Those with social anxiety can practice public speaking in virtual environments before facing real audiences. Combat veterans can process traumatic memories in controlled virtual settings that feel authentic enough to be therapeutic, but safe enough to prevent re-traumatization. Recovery stories from 2025 provide genuine hope. Jennifer overcame her social anxiety after 12 weeks of CBT combined with virtual reality exposure. She went from avoiding all social situations to accepting a promotion that required regular presentations. Mark's OCD symptoms decreased by 75% after 6 months of exposure and response prevention therapy. He reduced his daily checking rituals from 4 hours to less than 20 minutes. Long-term outcome statistics show that people who complete anxiety treatment maintain their improvements over time. Follow-up studies find that 60 to 70% of people who recover from anxiety disorders remain symptom-free or have only mild symptoms 5 years later. The skills people learn in modern anxiety treatment create lasting changes in how their brains process predictions about the future. The most encouraging part about anxiety treatment in 2025 is that it addresses the root cause rather than just masking symptoms. When people learn to retrain their prediction systems, they don't just feel better temporarily. They develop skills that protect them from future anxiety episodes and help them respond more effectively when normal life stresses occur. But while professional treatment offers the most comprehensive path to recovery, there are also powerful tools that anyone can start using right away to begin reclaiming their life from anxiety. Taking back control, modern coping strategies. Evidence-based strategies can help you start reclaiming your life from anxiety today by targeting the prediction errors that drive your symptoms. These techniques work because they address the same malfunctioning prediction system that creates anxiety in the first place. When your brain starts generating catastrophic predictions about the future, grounding techniques can interrupt that spiral before it takes over completely. The 5-4-3-2-1 method, recommended by many clinicians, gives your prediction system something concrete to focus on instead of imaginary disasters. Look around and identify 5 things you can see. Maybe it's your coffee mug, a picture on the wall, your phone, a pen, and the lamp on your desk. Then find 4 things you can physically touch. The texture of your shirt, the smooth surface of your table, the rough fabric of your chair, the cool metal of your keys. Now listen for 3 distinct sounds. You might hear traffic outside, the hum of your air conditioner, and someone talking. In the next room, identify 2 things you can smell. Perhaps it's your morning coffee and the faint scent of laundry detergent on your clothes. Finally, notice 1 thing you can taste. Maybe it's the lingering flavor of toothpaste or the coffee you just sipped. This technique works by redirecting attention from anxious thoughts to the immediate physical environment, helping to interrupt the cycle of anxious thinking and bring the nervous system back to baseline. Breathing exercises provide another powerful tool for calming your nervous system when anxiety strikes. Your breath directly connects to your body's stress response system. When you're anxious, your breathing becomes shallow and quick, which signals to your brain that you're in danger. Deep breathing reverses this process by engaging the parasympathetic nervous system, which counteracts the fight-or-flight response that drives anxiety symptoms. Try this technique right now. Breathe in slowly through your nose for 4 counts. Hold that breath for 4 counts. Now exhale through your mouth for 4 counts. Hold empty for 4 counts before starting the next breath. Focus on making your breathing slow and deliberate. You can practice this anywhere without anyone noticing, making it perfect for moments when anxiety hits during meetings, social situations, or while driving. Progressive muscle relaxation teaches your body the difference between tension and relaxation while giving your prediction system a concrete task to focus on. Start with your toes and tense those muscles for 5 seconds, then release and notice the contrast. Move up to your calves, tensing and releasing. Continue through your thighs, buttocks, abdomen, hands, arms, shoulders, neck, and face. This process helps you recognize where you carry anxiety tension and gives you a tool to release it consciously. Mindfulness practices help you catch anxious predictions before they spiral out of control. The key insight is that you don't have to believe every thought your brain generates. When you notice yourself thinking something like, "I'm going to embarrass myself at tomorrow's presentation," you can respond with curiosity instead of panic. Ask yourself questions like, is this thought helpful right now? Or, what evidence do I have that this prediction is accurate? Regular mindfulness practice creates lasting changes in your brain that make it easier to handle stress and anxiety with resilience. You can start with just 5 minutes a day using guided meditations specifically designed for anxiety relief. Many mental health apps offer on-demand breathing guides and mindfulness reminders to interrupt anxiety cycles. These structured programs teach you to observe your thoughts without getting caught up in them. Self-directed exposure techniques allow you to challenge your prediction errors safely on your own. Start small with situations that trigger mild anxiety, rather than jumping into your biggest fears. If social anxiety makes you avoid phone calls, you might start by calling a business to ask their hours instead of avoiding all phone contact. If driving anxiety keeps you from highways, you might practice driving on less busy roads first. The key is gradual progression that allows your brain to collect evidence that contradicts its catastrophic predictions. Each successful exposure provides data that your prediction system can use to generate more accurate forecasts about future situations. Keep a record of your exposures and their outcomes so you can reference concrete evidence when your brain tries to predict disaster. Physical activity releases endorphins, which are your brain's natural mood elevators. Even just a few minutes of movement each day can make a significant difference in your anxiety levels. You don't need intense workouts or expensive gym memberships. Walking, dancing to music in your living room, doing yoga videos, or even taking the stairs instead of the elevator can help reduce anxiety symptoms. Sleep quality dramatically affects your brain's ability to generate accurate predictions about the future. When you're sleep deprived, your prediction system becomes more likely to generate catastrophic forecasts about everyday situations. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night and create a consistent bedtime routine that signals to your brain that it's time to rest. Building a support network accelerates recovery and helps prevent anxiety from returning. Share your experiences with trusted friends or family members who can provide encouragement and accountability. Online mental health communities offer safe spaces to connect with others facing similar challenges. Sometimes just knowing that other people understand what you're going through can reduce the isolation that often accompanies anxiety. Create a personalized toolkit of activities that bring you comfort and calm. This might include a journal for writing down your thoughts, essential oils for aromatherapy, a playlist of calming music, or hobbies that require focused attention. Having these tools readily available gives you concrete options when anxiety strikes. Set small, achievable goals that help you regain a sense of control when anxiety feels overwhelming. Examples include organizing one drawer, writing down 3 things you're grateful for, or preparing a nutritious meal. These small successes build momentum and prove to your brain that you can handle challenges effectively. These strategies provide immediate relief and long-term benefits, but they represent just the beginning of what's possible when you understand anxiety as a treatable condition rather than a permanent limitation. Recovery becomes achievable once you recognize these patterns and understand the tools available to address them. Anxiety disorders remain the most common mental health challenge globally, yet they are among the most treatable. When you understand that anxiety isn't about fear, but about your brain's prediction system going wrong, you can actually fix the problem instead of just managing symptoms. The treatments we have in 2025 work really well. Most people who get proper help see major improvement. Whether it's therapy, medication, or both together, recovery isn't just possible, it's expected. Your anxious predictions aren't facts about the future. They're errors your brain can learn to correct. If these ideas resonate, consider talking to a professional about CBT or exposure-based therapy to retrain your brain's predictions. If you found this perspective helpful, subscribe and share your experiences in